Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And Tom, I want to start with the Nashville Predators. I saw them play live last night, and they're a team you could get behind because they play hard.
Nice.
They play rough. After the game, Red Wings captain Dylan Larkin was asked why they only had 16 shots on the goal. And he said, because they beat the crap out of us down low. That was an exact quote. He said, we couldn't get to the net. And he said, we got to be better than that. We got to play through that. But he said, they were a real physical group. And it just, they just weren't ready for it. He said they were really, really hard to play against. And I watched them closely. And they have guys that will staple you against the boards and make life rough for you. And there aren't as many of those teams in the NHL as you think there are. You would think that would be every team would be like that. Everybody talks about that, but the Predators really are difficult to play against.
So again, it shows the power of our show once again, because we did tell them that they needed to toughen up a little bit mentally and physically. So, I know we're going to get to this stuff. How did Matt Duchene do? How did he play?
He had a really nice assist on their first goal. It was scored by Ryan Johansson. I think both those guys are playing well. What's interesting about the Predators is this is David Poile's 50th year in the NHL.
Wow.
50 years.
Wow.
And if you take into account that his father, Bud Poile, played for the Maple Leafs in the 1940s, there's been a Poile name in the NHL, for 7-8 decades.
80 years, that's right. You know what? It's really, I'm glad you mentioned him, because we were critical of Nashville the last few seasons because they just weren't tough enough mentally or physically. And now to see them back at it. So I'm assuming David Poile sat back and said, listen, I need to change the makeup of this team, right? And doing it while he was saddled with the big contracts of Johansson and Duchene, and now that they're playing better. Because again, I'm not as much a Duchene fan, but I am a huge Johansson fan. But he has not been playing the way he could play either the last few years. So good to see that they're both playing better.
Yeah, and I think they really have played better since the start of the season. And there's just a lot of their defense is still strong, even though they moved out Ryan Ellis, who I think is a pretty good hockey player. But, Yossi, we had a big game last night. He had a goal and assist and was a dominant player. There's a reason why he wins the Norris Trophy, So yeah. He's a really good, skilled player. And he's got 8 goals already this year. So he's on a pace to score 20 goals as a defenseman. And right. You can't rule it out with a guy that skilled.
You think Nashville over the years too. You talked about Ryan Ellis being moved out. Look at the defensemen they moved out of there, right? Seth Jones, Shea Weber. I guess you include PK Subban in that category. So he was there. Ryan Ellis. Those are all pretty good defensemen, right? Wow.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. I don't know. It's like they're a factory for good young defensemen. They must play some kind of, maybe it's just coincidence, but they've drafted a lot of quality defensemen.
Totally. You put Suter in that category as well. Yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Suter, in my opinion, has been the glue that's kind of helped Dallas get it all together. I don't think Dallas played last night, did they? Or did they?
I don't think they did. No, I'll check, but I don't think they did. No. Yeah. No, they're. It's funny with Suter. He's one of those guys. When I watch him play, I go, man, I see how good he is, but there's just something there. We talked about him before, right? I mean, is it? He's got the Grouchy Man syndrome or something. I don't know. He just seems like he's.
Well, I think there's a feeling that he can be in the room. Like he's not the guy that says, right. Let's rally, behind the flag and get this team rolling again. When things go bad, he kind of goes bad. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's the rumor anyway. I've gotten to know him pretty well. I really like him. I knew his dad, his late father as well, who played for that 1980 Olympic team, Bam Bam, as they call him.
I didn't know they called him Bam Bam.
Oh yeah. Oh. Well, he was on the team. He was kind of the physical presence, even though he was a smaller player.
Right.
You know, it was his job to go out there and stir the pot up a little bit if they needed to. You know, Herbie liked to have all the elements of the game at his disposal.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, you look at Dallas and like their defense, their top four is as good as anyone's. They've got obviously Heiskanen, they've got Suter, they've got Lindell, Esa Lindell, and they've got John Klingberg. So you have four defensemen there who are all playing 22 minutes or more. It doesn't really matter who their 5 and 6 are. You know, they're playing a lot of minutes. And the other thing about that team that I think people have sort of lost sight of is, you know, you think of Dallas, you think of Ben and Sagan, but and those guys are contributing, but you know they can win without those guys now. Like you know, Joe Pavelski's the leading scorer. Robertson, their fine young player, is their second leading scorer. Roop Hintz is you know, their third leading scorer. I mean, there's a lot of really good players on Dallas now, and you know, Jamie Benn.
Who's the Russian forward they have there?
Radulov.
Yeah, that's right, Radulov. How's he doing? I haven't seen that.
He's okay. He's got a lot of assists. He doesn't have any goals. I think he's got one goal. Yeah. But our boy Jamie Benn, who we've been a little critical of, just he hasn't been the same player for the last 2 or 3 years. You know, he's tied for the team lead in goals with 7. So you know he's had a good day. Tyler Sagan has fewer points than Ben, but you know they're contributing. They're among the top 6 or 7 scorers on the team, but they're
not. Susan Brooks is taking you to a task a little bit here. She's adding that maybe the Rangers' defense are as good. Their top 4: Fox, Lindgren, Trouba, and Miller.
Yeah, well, Susan, you weren't listening. What did I say? I said I didn't think. I said, no, I mean I purposely said that no one's defense was any better. I mean they're as good as anyone else's. Because I was really purposeful in that because there are good defensemen. I mean, look at Carolina's defense, even if they give up. So I just make it a point they're as good as anything out there. You know, those 4 guys are all pretty good, and the Rangers group obviously is very, very good as well.
How about speaking of goals? How about the Milano goal from Zegras last night? Did you see the tape of that?
That was just phenomenal. Man. They actually broadcast that at the Little Caesars Arena. Like they put it up on the screen after it happened, and everybody just went like, "Whoa!" You know, it's interesting about. I just was telling my wife. Now it's not only Americans who do that, but there is like it's almost a legacy, like Wallstrom, who's on the Islanders, who came through the program. There's a video of him that had circulated in Michigan of him coming in on a breakaway when he was 11 years old and putting the puck on a stick and then just lacrosse styling it into the net past the goalie when he was like 10 or 11 years old. And they show that every once in a while, like when you play the Islanders about, you know, when he was doing that. Well, the first guy to do it was at the University of Michigan, Leg. You know, Zegras is out of that American Pro. The Kachuks can both do it. You know, and it's kind of an American kind of thing, you know.
Because growing up in Canada, the culture there, I think it's changed now. But back when I played, you wouldn't even have thought of doing that. Like it was frowned upon to do something like that, right? It was like a hot dog kind of move. People would come after you. The other, like if I was a defenseman on the other team and did it to my team, I'd come after you. Like you just don't do that.
Now the what I liked best about that is because usually they really try to reach over and slam it in the net. He just flipped it over like he was lofting a 9-iron, over there, and it just kind of hit the back. And
I like the looks on their face after too. I think they're both kind of surprised that it worked. Right, one of the quotes I read where they're both saying like that actually worked. You know, they've obviously worked on it before. They must have tried to practice.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Like that right now you have to say that's going to win the SB. How are you going to get a better goal than that?
I know.
Yeah, so that was really a phenomenal thing. Yeah. The other news on the out of that Detroit game was, and it was a very physical game. Moritz Seider, who has been unbelievable, is the only word you can say for him. He's 6'4". He's 20 years old. He got his 15th assist last night. He's played 25 games in the NHL. Wow. He's clearly the Red Wings' best defenseman. Like we're not debating it. Like he just is.
Is he rookie of the year then right now?
Right now I would say so, but Zegras is really picking it up. So I mean, we're only a third of the way through. Yeah, but he was on a pace that to flirt with Nicholas Lidstrom's rookie record. Actually, Reed Larson owns it too, of 60 points in a season. Like he was right on that pace. And the amazing part about that is that, and I had asked Blashill about this, and he thought, he knew exactly what I was saying. He hasn't taken any chances yet. Like, he's not moving into the slot at 15 feet and letting that, shot go. He's staying back where he's supposed to be. Like he is piling up tons of points by just playing defense. Like he's not, he's not going end to end. However, once you get in overtime, you see his skill. Like he's got 2 overtime game winners. And he has this real sharp shot that he can one time from odd angles, and he has scored 2 precision shots. Well, anyway, he's phenomenal. I mean, everybody's talking about Lucas Raymond, who's also been a terrific rookie. He's been phenomenal, and he got hurt at the end of last night's game. He got slammed against the boards. You could see on the video he winced a little bit. He left the ice. There was no update after the game. He did also earlier in the season, he blocked the shot. What's the other thing too? He blocked shots as well. Blocked shots, hits. And he was able to come back and play like nothing happened. So, like the writers were talking last night, maybe it's one of those things where, he was in a lot of pain. But he looked like he was favoring his shoulder to me. So we'll know today what's going on, but that would be a shame because he's fun to watch. He's very entertaining. He's really your style of defenseman. He concentrates on just trying to play defense, and he's been terrific. He also, I don't think we've seen all the hitting he's going to do. I've seen him international play. Like he wants to run you over. He hasn't done that yet. He made some hits, but he's not looking to Cronwall yet. But I think eventually he will. So
how about speaking of hits? How about Trouba last night hitting that car in Chicago? Woo.
Yeah, I didn't hear the latest. What was the latest? I know he had to go to the hospital.
I saw a report that he was up and moving and alert and everything. So
they took him to the hospital. First they said he was doing well, and then they said they've transported him to the hospital, and that's the last I saw.
Yeah. I haven't heard too much about. I guess some of the people like Ron Jameson, one of our listeners here, is asking about Tom hits in today's hockey. Your thoughts? So I mean, there's always been hits in hockey like that. Those kind of hits have always happened. They've cleaned a lot of that up now because sometimes it's hard to not hit the head because usually if you're going after a player like that, he has his head down. That's why you were able to hit him. He doesn't see you coming, and therefore you're hitting him in the head most times. I thought Trouba did a really good job of going shoulder to chest. So I don't think it was a dirty hit. It's interesting. I'm coaching youth hockey now. There's so many rules. Actually, kids playing, I don't think they can hit until they're 12, 13, 14 years old now, something like that.
Yeah, ban them. Yeah.
Yeah. And plus they're really, you were taught as a young player to keep your head up. Like in that play, Kara's got his head down and you think to yourself, you've got to hit him as a defenseman. You've got to step in and hit him. That is your job. Anybody that has a chance to hit a player like that, you're not trying to hurt him, but you've got to hit him. Separating from the puck, and you're also saying, okay, listen, we want to get that kind of play. We want to show the other team, listen, you're going to have to fight for this win tonight. So I just think there's so many young kids that are coming up not knowing how to protect themselves, whether it's along the boards, standing facing the boards 2 or 3 feet away from it. And I know like they think the rules are going to protect them, but that just doesn't always happen. The rules just don't always protect them. You saw the McDavid hit the other night where he just barely touched the player. He was sure he came back and played and actually scored the first goal in the penalty. But I just think it's more of a case where the players just aren't at that same point where, like, again, protecting ourselves out in the ice and learning how to protect ourselves was a big thing back then. I just don't see that as much now, especially in some of these big hits. So, yeah.
Yeah, I finally saw the replay of the Connor McDavid. I would have called that.
Yeah. He barely touched him, right? It was like,
yeah. Yeah.
How about in the St. Louis Florida game last night? St. Louis had to play one player short because of cap situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, didn't the Calgary Flames have to
Yep.
play several years ago with 3 or 4 short?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Players Association made a big deal about that too, and rightfully so, because and I get it. I mean, I think Doug Armstrong, who's the general manager of St. Louis, has done a great job there. Obviously, they won a Stanley Cup, but to me, that's more of. I know you run into bad luck and injuries and all that kind of stuff, but that's the kind of stuff you need to plan for. My concern is, and it doesn't look like it was a big deal of just one player, but I mean, the fans are paying big money to come to the games. If they're not seeing a full lineup, if the team can't play as well because they don't have a full lineup, then I think that's something the league needs to.
So what would be your solution? What would be your solution for that?
Well, I hate to say give the team an opportunity maybe 3 or 4 times a year to circumvent the cap for those kinds of situations because of injury issues where they can now go over the cap because they need to feel to have a full team on days. But a lot of general managers are going to take advantage of that, right? They want to win.
Well, for sure, yeah. That's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
To be sure. I do want to talk about the Rangers a little bit, but before I do, I wanted to ask you a little bit too about, because I'm fascinated by this, and it's not hockey, but it can involve hockey players. Is obviously there's the new NCAA rule that allows college athletes to make money, and it's really fascinating. I just assumed that it was going to just, the guys that would be getting the money will be the guys who are going to get the money in the NFL. Because if you're a big national sponsor, you're going to try to figure out who's going to have the great NFL career, and then you're going to, pay them. But a lot of interesting things have happened. Yeah. And for example, there are 2 twin female basketball players in Fresno who are, from a story I read, are going to make over $1 million this year because they're really good on social media. And they're good enough athletes that they can do kind of phenomenal things with the basketball. And They do these videos and they promote products, and they've done a really good job. They're actually in Times Square. They did a big billboard of those 2. No, it's really kind of a neat story. So, and I'm actually, that's what I'm happy for that, because clearly the NCAA took advantage of athletes for a lot of years. No doubt about it. But here's the thing. And I wanted to get your thought. And there's some other good stories too, but they're good stories with the possibility of trouble. So there was a big, and I saw this on Real Sports, a big Brigham Young fan, booster, who owns a company, and he's gone in and he's paying everybody on the Brigham Young team, everybody, to promote his drinks and his energy bars and so forth. And the way he's paying walk-ons is he's paying for all their tuition. So that's 30-some guys. So these walk-ons now who weren't scholarship players. So in effect, that gives Brigham Young an extra 30 players, because if you're, if you can be a preferred walk-on to go to Brigham Young and this guy's going to pay your tuition, then really you're a scholarship player.
Okay.
So, So, it's a good deal for these walk-ons because this first group, they didn't know that when they showed up. So that's a wonderful story. So
how about the recruiting ad who gives Brigham Young too, right?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, so, and the scholarship players, he gives them $2,000. Okay. So walk-ons get tuition, and then everybody who already has a scholarship, he just gives them $2,000 cash. Wow. And so everybody on the team.
I had a female lawyer on, Tara Rose. I believe Rose is her last name, and she does that. That's her business. She gets deals for players like that. And we were talking about some stuff. It'd be interesting. So let's have a scenario. Let's say a star quarterback gets some big deal, gets a $1 million endorsement deal, or whatever, or maybe a running back more accurately. But then the offensive linemen are going, okay, let's get this straight. You're getting $1 million. We're the ones that are blocking for you. We're not getting anything. I mean, it's
yeah. And to be honest, Tom, that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought, but the quarterback at Clemson, and this was also, I read about this, but I also saw this on Real Sports as well. If you have a chance to see it, I think it was a few weeks ago it ran. But the Clemson quarterback in the South, college football, as we all know, is bigger than the NFL. And someone made the point on the show that the Clemson quarterback has probably a higher Q rating than the Atlanta Falcons quarterback. Everybody knows who he is and all that. And he's got several deals, including one from a fast food chain called Zaxby's, which is not up where I live, but apparently it's a big chain. And he, in addition to the money he gets paid, and that he gets free food for himself, he gets a $500 per month budget to take his teammates. He was actually quite funny because someone said, "Well, how long does that last?" He goes, "Well, if you take the offensive lineman, it's just one meal." I thought that was hilarious. So, but anyway, but this is it's kind of working out. I see potential excesses here, but I'm really happy to hear that it isn't just the stars that are getting the money, because this, really it was that you built $1 billion business on the backs of athletes.
The coaches are making millions, TV's making millions, schools making millions.
Here's the best part of that story. So the twin basketball players, they're making more money than their coach, their athletic director, and the school president.
Oh, that's good. I like that. That's great. Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic. Because for years, you think about all these kids that are coming out of the inner city or whatever, they're really not qualified in a lot of cases to go to the college. They play football or basketball, whatever it is. The school, everybody's making money off them. Then these kids leave with no education, really, because they haven't been forced to really go to classes, and they've got nothing out of it, right? So,
although that's on them. That's on them. They don't go to class. That's on them.
Well, we could get into a lengthy debate about that one. I hear you. I know what you're saying, but I mean, these are young kids, 18, 19, 20 years old.
Look, Tom, there are tons of young kids who are out there working their way through college who had to figure it out on their own. Right. So I'm not giving any quarter. You get that scholarship, you need to go to class. You got to figure that out. Just like everybody else.
Okay, but these kids now, they're coming from places where they're told they can do whatever they want to do because they're great basketball players, they're great football players. I mean, I did that myself playing hockey in Canada. I got away with stuff that I shouldn't have got away with. I was actually
you got to be smarter than that. Like, everybody has to deal with that. You don't if you get pulled over by a police officer, you can't say, "Yeah, I'm a young guy. I really don't know what I'm doing. I came from a bad thing." You're not allowed to say that.
I did it.
Well, back then you could. You couldn't do that now.
Oh, well,
not anymore.
Yeah,
not anymore.
Yeah, these kids are still getting away with stuff. They are.
Well,
you are correct. You should be going to school. You should be at 18, 19, 20.
You got to figure it out. I mean, that's what we expect. If my son goes off to school and fools around and he's 18, I wouldn't say to him, "Well, I get it. You're 18. You didn't." I say to him, "Get your act together."
When you're on a scholarship, you're a scholarship athlete. Your parents aren't paying any money, so it's not costing them anything. Everybody's telling these kids how great they are because they can put a ball through a hoop, or they can throw a football or shoot a puck. That's the reality.
I mean, there are extenuating circumstances, but you can't give them zero accountability. Like they're technically adults. You got to do something out.
But the football program wants these kids playing because they want to have a successful football program. So the stories are out there all the time about these dummy classes that they're taking. They're really not learning anything. They're getting the tests written for them. So they're fine. You're an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. You're having fun. You're playing football. You don't think about the future as much, and you're just thinking, "This is fantastic. I'm a professional football player, really, in college." Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there's, I guess I don't know how much of that is still going on. If it's still going on to the same extent, I know for sure it was going on in the 70s and 80s because, when I was going to school at some point you got to realize, because not every, the graduation rates are not zero, graduation rates are not zero. Now they should be higher, but they're not zero because some kids figure it out.
Or else they have it figured out for them, right? So, somebody else figured it out for them, though. I listen. I'm with you. You should be looking back at it. I should have done better in college. I was given a full scholarship. So, but like everybody, you're dreaming of. They all think, and I did too. We all think that we're going to play in the National Hockey League, or the NFL, or the NBA. So you're thinking this, I don't need an education. I'm going to be a professional athlete. So why would I need an education?
So you think these guys that graduate are all fake graduates?
No, not all of them. No, not all
What
of them.
percentage? What percentage do you think, of those who would graduate?
I bet you half of those athletes, depending on the sport, I think it's the football programs, the basketball programs, the ones that generate all the revenue for the schools. Those are, so like the golf, maybe not as much, right? But I just think that those revenue generating sports, I would bet you half of those athletes are really not getting an education. Those big schools where the coaches are making millions of dollars and it's based on winning. They have to win. So they don't. I'm not saying these are bad people, the coaches, but again, they're saying, okay, we're bringing you here. You got an opportunity to get an education. We're paying for everything for you. But if you don't, we're going to make sure that you're eligible because we want you on the field helping our team win. So
yeah, but every year in the NCAA, there are players who are ineligible to play in bowl games because their grades come in. So those schools.
Imagine how bad you have to be. That's my point. I think that's how to let that happen with all the help that they're giving these kids is.
Yeah. Well, there is no doubt that they're getting some help in tutoring and, but you think there's people who go and take a test for them still and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think they're going in and taking these classes. Like, listen, I had again, this is way back a long time ago. So when I was at college, I had a professor who used to ride on our team bus. He loved hockey and everything. So we all took his class. It was back when you were given a little computer card with like the 5 little circles you had to fill in with your pencil. And then you got the question sheet. So he came by with the computer card before he'd handed out the question sheet, and he leans over to me and says, "Tom, you might as well start filling this out right now." Saying, "Listen, I'm getting a C no matter what." So I was smart enough to take my time and fill out the computer card. And
you think it's still going on 40 years later? It's still going on like that?
Oh, I think I think they're smarter about it now. Yeah.
I guess I don't cover college athletics, so I don't know, but I'm stunned by that. I thought that they had cleaned up. Like, I'm not naive enough to think that it doesn't go on somewhere, but there's such a focus on that. The NCAA compliance. Like when I covered Ohio State for a couple of years in last years of my career at USA Today, and they have a compliance officer there that deals with the media who talks, keeps track of everything. And, they're the ones that end up, most of these things that get turned in by the compliance officer, who said, look, and oftentimes they were in there trying to plead, hey, look, we did it not knowing we were doing it, but we did it, so, because some of these rules were a little bit gray, but I'm surprised that you think that's still going on. So
maybe do a little research. Maybe I'll talk to some people and see what they say too. Because I even know when I was in the agent business dealing with some of the hockey players, that was still the case. They more talked about, again, like the big revenue generating sports like the football and the basketball.
Yeah, I guess my take on it would still be the same. Like, I think that that there's no question that big institutions took advantage of athletes. I don't think there's any question about that. And they built their programs. But I also think that you can't exonerate kids from, not knowing that it would be better if they go to school. And I also think some kids, did figure it out. I've known plenty of athletes who were really smart people who, took advantage and got their education and, ended up doing well in life because of it. So anyway. Let's go to the Rangers, talk about hockey. I want to talk about them. I was thinking the other day, like Jeff Gordon, like, what's he thinking now? So, he looks at this Ranger team, and it's become exactly the team that most of us thought it would. It had all this talent, and we thought it would eventually come together. Like, I remember in the offseason, you and I were almost giddy about how good this team might be this year. I think it's even better than we thought it was going to be, even though I think we thought it was going to be pretty good. But if you're Jeff Gordon, you're sitting over in Montreal where now you're thinking about, okay, we're going to have to strip this team down to the chassis. And you look at the Rangers and, they're on top of the world right now. And I just think that's got to be hard for him because, he takes a stand for whatever it was against Mr. Dolan. And, of course, he was out of a job. So,
right. Well, I think it's the impatience of the owners too, right? Mr. Dolan just didn't, well, So Jeff Gordon and John Davison both knew that they did not have a tough enough team last year, but I think they felt that they needed to have those spots filled by young kids getting to play as opposed to some tougher guys like a Ryan Reeves, which they went out and got. Because Jeff may become, and I hope this doesn't really happen to him. He's a friend of mine. Jeff Gordon may become that guy that is the rebuilder, right? He rebuilds the team to a certain point, and then they have somebody else come in because the owner gets impatient. The other guy comes in now and benefits from all the good stuff that Jeff Gordon does. This group, look, they got Shesterkin's out right now. He's hurt. It's a lower body injury.
Yeah, how long is he out for? I wanted to ask you that.
I don't think it was too long. Actually, they're going on a road trip, and they're on the road trip, and I think he's with the team. I saw Gallant Gerard Gallant, the coach, getting quoted as saying that. But then Georgiev, the other goaltender, who had kind of struggled early in the year, he comes in and he's played fine. I just think, this team, like we've seen so many times, they've learned how to win too. Like the games they were losing before earlier in the year, they were losing games. They've been up in the third period and then lose the game. They happened in Vancouver to them. It happened in Edmonton, I believe. Now they're finding ways to win games. Now, some of it is just fantastic goaltending, especially from Shesterkin. But, they're getting the goals now. Panarin's now scoring again. He wasn't scoring early in the year. So they've got all the pieces to the puzzle. I mean, they're big, they're strong, they're more physical now. They've got great goal scoring. The guy that everybody was on so much, Kreider, who I think is fantastic. He's playing a more consistent game now, being more of a leader too. So but you're right on Gordon. You got to feel bad for him, right? Because he said, but the flip side is now he's in running the New York Yankees of the National Hockey League.
Yeah. And, he'll do there, kind of what he did with the Rangers, like, Sherratt, he'll turn into a draft pick. And they've got, Carolina's first round pick. Yep. They got their own. That'll be a lottery pick. So, and they've got some good young players. Suzuki is a good forward. Yep. Petrie's a very solid defenseman. He's not archaic. He'll be around for a while. Yep. So they've got some parts there, and it's going to be a similar type rebuild. Like, Buffalo and Toronto and Detroit, they basically kind of started over from scratch. And, but some teams can't do that because they've got long-term contracts. The Rangers, they kept the Kreiders and some other players, and they just sort of built around them. And I think that's kind of what it'll do. Speaking of Trouba, I think he was a guy that Ranger fans said, we really didn't need him. But, he stepped up in the games I've watched. He's played pretty well. He had a Gordie Howe hat trick last night. I don't know whether they announced this on TV or not, but do you know when their last Gordie Howe hat trick was? Did they say during the game?
Rangers, no.
Yeah. Just take a guess who the last guy to get a.
I'm going to say Adam Graves. Go way back. You make it seem like.
Oh, that's actually a good guess. But you're in the right era, but the wrong guy.
Oh, who's that? Mark Messier?
No. Believe it or not, this just stuns me. It's Brian Leach.
Oh, is that right? Oh.
Yeah, Brian Leach. So the
Gordie Howe hat trick, the fight, goal, and assist, right?
Right.
And now, am I correct in saying Gordie Howe really only had a Gordie Howe hat trick one time?
Twice. Twice. Just twice. Wow. That's the leaders in that, Brendan Shanahan was the leader. I think he had 17 of them.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
And then someone else may have passed him in recent years. I'm trying to think.
Who's throwing stuff around there?
Oh, that's Hudson. He's also screaming too. So.
But going back to Trouba, though, you know what I like about him? When he first came here to the Rangers, I think he felt like with the big contract, they weren't playing that well. He tried to do more than he should have been doing. He was trying to carry the puck in, and that wasn't his game. Now they've got other people to do that, particularly Fox, and he can just now play his game. And he's playing well, man. He's a hard guy to play against. He's playing tough physical hockey. He's good.
Yeah. Well, Fox is, when you get a difference maker like Fox too, like what a difference that makes. For a hockey team. My other grandson is waving at me.
Good. So the other New York team finally won the first game. I read it and said, I hate to be like this with the Islanders, but the first game that they won in a month. I don't recall going anywhere near that long without winning a game. That had to be hard for them. Ooh.
Yeah, it's to be honest with you, I watched them against the Red Wings, and they just don't even seem like the same team. They're going through, like, it's like they were going through the motions, like they're lethargic. I wonder if that's the residue.
Yeah,
of
you said that
COVID.
before. I never
So,
thought of that. But you said it before. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
but obviously they stepped up. They've still got all the elements, but they are beat up a little bit. They have
That,
injuries to be sure.
what's interesting too, and I keep beating this drum all the time, but the more stuff I read about, more people are talking about if the players go to the Olympics now, if they go. Before it was a slam dunk, more of it is if now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think what I've been hearing, and I also saw TSN had a little piece on this too, is they expect now that they'll still go, but a few players will choose not to go. Like Robin Leonard just announced that he felt it wouldn't be good for him, his mental health, to go, so he's not going to go. And I think there's a feeling that there'll be probably a couple in every country that'll just say, for whatever reason, I don't want to take a chance that I'll get quarantined over there, because one of the big issues is how long you have to quarantine over there if you test positive for COVID. And even though they're all going to be vaccinated, there's plenty of evidence to show that you can still get this. This thing is so transmissible that you can still get it. Now, they're not getting the majority of people aren't getting all that sick, but you do get it and you can pass it on. So you don't want to end up giving it to someone else. So you
imagine being stuck in China for 21 days being quarantined.
Well, that's the issue. But I've heard discussions about would there be a plane that would fly all the American athletes who have to quarantine home. They're all in it together anyway, so just throw them all on there, and you'd get some volunteer pilots and some volunteer flight attendants who would dress in hazmat style clothing.
I'm thinking, okay, I'm in China, so I'm going to trust the Chinese government that they're going to let us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's what the concern is, and it's we're all afraid of the unknown, and you don't know, and the big thing is the language barrier.
Yeah,
I'm sure that they would leave some translators behind, and there'll be plenty of Americans still over there because the Paralympic Games would be going on as well while you're quarantining. But it's an issue, and imagine the impact on your team. So you test positive. Of course, once you get back over here, it would be 10 days.
Right. But yeah, let's say like the last day of the Olympics, you test positive. You're stuck there for 3 weeks. Ooh.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, your team's trying to get in the playoffs.
Imagine the owners. The owners are really happy with that. They still have to pay the salary and everything. The player's stuck. The best player now is stuck over in China.
Well, and every one of these players is a difference maker. It's not like you're losing your number 6 defenseman or 7 defensemen.
So Edmonton Oilers are having a great season. Connor McDavid goes over there, gets stuck in China for 3 weeks while his team's battling for the spot in the playoffs.
Yeah. So you can see that, but I could see just players just making decisions that it's not good for their family, for whatever reason. Maybe their parents live with them. Maybe they have a child whose immune system is compromised, and they just would rather not, take that chance. So I bet we do see that. So I've seen some comments. I actually don't believe this, but I've seen some people saying, well, they're not going to watch anyway. Television numbers of Olympics are always, they've been down, but they're always phenomenal. Especially compared to our little sport.
Although I got to tell you, I didn't watch any of the Summer Olympics. I watched none of it. I didn't. The last time around.
Yeah, but that's not your thing.
Good point. Yeah.
So.
Maybe if Ron Greshner was playing like beach volleyball or something like that, I'd be watching. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. I watched those Olympics probably not as religiously as I would have in the past, but there's so much going on. But in COVID, we needed stuff to watch.
Yeah, that's true.
We were all watching whatever we could get. So anyway, we've probably run out of time now. We had some good discussions. Tom schooled me on what's going on. I had no idea that there was still that much cheating going on. So
wait, should we call it cheating or being creative? Being creative.
No, I think that's cheating. If you're helping kids, get through school without having to go to class, I think you're cheating. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. We'll be back again next week. The holidays are coming up, but we still got some shows before that happens. And if you want to read me, I'm at hockeybuzz.com and DetroitHockeyNow.com.
And again, if you want to listen to the radio version of this show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. Everybody have a great rest of the week. We'll see you on Monday.